Welcome to Unapologetically Molly podcast. We are here in Atlanta, Georgia with Jenna, and I'm so excited to sit down with Jenna. She is a motivational speaker, empowering women to go after their financial goals and also to claim their financial independence. So I'm so happy you are here, Jenna. I am going to let you tell us a little bit more about what you do and kind of your mission.
Thank you so much, Molly, and I appreciate you having me on your show. So I'm an author as well, so I have a book out called I Love Me More, How to Find Happiness and Success Through Self-Love. And that came out a couple of years ago, but it is selling strong right now. So it's really exciting to be getting the word about self-love out there still very strongly today. I wrote the book specifically for women because we as women battle with a lot of unconscious social conditioning that keeps us from prioritizing ourselves and our needs and our happiness and self-sacrificing ourselves and all those things that prevent us from loving ourselves more. So my mission is to really, among other things, help spread the message of self-love and self-care. But I also talk about all kinds of other topics. I know you and I have a lot in common. You like to talk about mindset and personal growth and development. That's really part of who I am. And so I bring in a lot of other topics into some of the talks that I do. I work a lot with corporate as well. I'm a facilitator, moderator, and I have a show as well called The Jenna Banks Show.
The Jenna Banks. We're going to put the link for that because I would love to see you tune in for that. Okay. So tell me a little bit about the personal growth. Like, where were you when you first started to realize that? I probably started with yourself, like I needed help in this area. And then how did you get to a point where you were, financially independent and that mindset that I guess came before that?
All right. Well, I will try to wrap this up in a nutshell because my journey has been long, arduous, but a journey that I'm so glad I was able to take. So I started off, I came from a very poor background. Oldest of 5 kids, so family of 7. We had no money. And when I mean no money, I mean no money. We shopped with coupons and, extreme couponing was like the thing in our home for sure. And so I had a really rough childhood, a lot of trauma. I ended up leaving home at 14.
14?
Yes.
Okay.
And
wow.
And I have 2 parents that I've had struggles with. I didn't get support from them essentially. And so I ended up getting my GED at 17, was pregnant and married at 19, divorced single mom at 22. But then, my goal was to go from surviving to thriving. And that's when I really started focusing on my personal growth and development. Once I was no longer in survival mode, I had a stable job. I was able to start my corporate career, even though I only had a GED. And I talk about this actually in the book because it's really important to us women especially not let perfectionism hold us back. Because I feel like a lot of us focus on perfectionism, like we have to meet all the criteria into the job requirements, for example, in order to apply. And there's a lot of statistics about that. Well, I didn't do that. I mean, I went from the bottom of bottom. So for me, I wasn't, I was like, screw it. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get this job, right? I've got a son to support. I've got myself to support. if I feel like I can do the job, I will apply for it. And even though it says you need a bachelor's degree or whatever, I just would go for it anyways. And I would end up not always getting the job, but if I really, really wanted it and I get the interview, I would nab the job usually.
Yeah.
And so once I got stable in my career and I really excelled, ended up going, pretty far in management. I usually ended up in management, probably because I was the oldest of 5 kids. Who knows?
A little bossy.
Yeah, used to taking charge. And then I could really start focusing on my spiritual growth. I was raised really religious, but I had some trauma around that.
What religion?
Christian, but Pentecostal. But literally went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. I went to a Christian school. We weren't allowed to watch secular movies or worldly movies or music. I mean, everything was Christian only. And I had a lot of trauma because it was a lot of fear, right? If you don't pray for your sins every night, you're going to go to hell. This God is going to burn you in hell if you don't do what the Bible says. And I just thought, this doesn't sit right with me. This doesn't feel right in my heart and my soul. And I talk about that a lot in my book, is just following your own guidance, following your own intuition. My heart told me this is not what God is, that this is not what love is.
Yeah.
Right. And so through my own journey of personal growth and spiritual growth and discovery, a lot of reading and a lot of opening myself up to other thoughts and ideas and going within, I was able to come to my own conclusions and decisions and beliefs, which all of these are really beliefs anyways, right? But which, really led me down to the path to learning to love myself, which is what the book is all about, because I truly believe that self-love really is one of the big keys to happiness, success, and fulfillment. If you don't love yourself, you're going to be looking outside of yourself for that fulfillment, for that happiness. And it's not found in anything outside of ourselves. It's not found in success in terms of the big house, fancy car, the Gucci, the Louis Vuitton, the Chanel.
So nice.
It's nice, but you're never going to be truly fulfilled and truly happy. It's about really looking within and finding what lights you up specifically, not what others think of you, but what really makes you happy. And so,
So tell me, when you were on your personal growth journey and then learning how to love oneself, did that love come from like you doing activities, or like what kind of, I guess they would say, practices that you do that you were able to kind of feel the emotion of, I would say, like if I'm thinking about a trauma-based background, like safety and like that warm feeling that you get knowing that you're loved, kind of like the feeling you get like around Christmas time. Like that's what I attribute, like, that security or feeling loved, right?
Yeah, it's when I showed myself love, when I protected my boundaries, when I stood up for myself, when I felt like something didn't feel right.
Give me an example.
Well, I write about this one in my book. There was a job I was doing very, very well at, high six-figure income, and I could have just stayed there forever, but it just didn't. It didn't feel right. It felt like the universe or God or source, whatever you want to call it, was pushing me out the door. And I ended up trusting my intuition and quitting with no backup, no other job, no nothing, but just knowing that that was the right thing to do. And thank goodness I did that. Now, I struggled for a couple months trying to find my way, but things don't always happen immediately. And then I started my company, and that company led me to leaving my small rent-controlled 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in Santa Monica, to expanding my horizons, moving to here to Atlanta, and buying a couple of properties that I wouldn't have been able to afford had I stayed in California. And then grew my business simultaneously while ramping up my real estate business. I rented those properties out on Airbnb, did very well with them, and ended up selling all of that for $1 million plus, and never would have been able to do that had I stayed stuck in the corporate job doing what you should do, giving your power away in exchange for money. It's fine to do if it resonates for you, but it wasn't resonating for me anymore. You know what I mean? And in return, by following my passion and following my heart and my intuition, I was able to find what lit me up, which also led to my financial independence as an entrepreneur.
Do you think we give our power away when we work for these corporate companies?
100%.
That promise, like, what is it, like 6 days of vacation a year?
I mean, the American system is pretty messed up, but we work our butts off to create an identity, this title at this company, and we wrap so much of ourselves up in that, so much of our worth in that. What happens is if that gets taken away from us, we lose that job, we're fearful, right? We're fearful of losing that identity. And so in return, you give up a piece of yourself to that company. You're so scared because your identity is wrapped up in that. And it's a very insecure place to be.
Okay, let's talk numbers. What did you invest? What were your numbers when you first bought your Airbnb? What would you say?
I'm so glad you're bringing this up. I want to spread this message far and wide. Now, I don't know what things are like today with interest rates as they are and the banking standards, but I bought my first property with 5% down. Now, at the time in Atlanta in 2015, real estate was still like, you can still get some really good deals here. You still can. It's still happening. But I just found a good deal in a more up-and-coming place and furnished it nicely and just started Airbnb-ing it out and got that ramped up. And then bought my second one a couple years later, same thing, 5% down. Now, if you buy it as an investment property, you can't do that. But I bought it to live in it. And the rules are you can live in it, or you really need to live in it, I think, technically for a year.
And they were both single family?
They were both single family.
Okay.
So if you technically live in it for a year, then you're allowed to rent it out. But you still have your conventional loan. You still only put 5% down on it.
What were the rates at that time? Maybe 2%, 2.5?
They were like 3 point something. And then the second one I bought at like 4.2%, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were pretty low. That said, they're still historically low.
Yeah, compared to these numbers these days, 6% to your 4.25.
Still historically low.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine whose family immigrated from Vietnam many years ago, back in the Reagan era, I want to say, and the interest rates were 24%. Think about that.
I don't think the houses are as high though, were they?
Well, right? With
Yeah.
a few $100,000 to us today, 400, 500,000 today.
I guess,
Like,
yeah,
in
it's so
California,
relative.
They bought in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 12%. Definitely.
So 24%, they were willing to pay that and, to own a home. So today they are still historically low, and rates will hopefully be coming back down again this year. But think
Hopefully.
about that.
Let's see what happens after the election.
Think about that. If you could take, let's say back then it was 20% for me on a $250,000 house. Okay, so today it's 500,000 or 450 or 400, whenever the rates are where you're at. If you're in a place like Atlanta or Tennessee or Florida, you might be able to get something for 400 or 500. That is a good 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. If you put 5% down, you're still looking at like 40,000,
Yeah.
50,000. And then you have, if you Airbnb it out, you could either do that or you could just have someone rent it from you and pay your mortgage and then turn around and do it again. I know someone who inspired me. It was a gentleman who owned like 10 properties in California. How expensive it is over there.
I do.
Especially in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
But he was a mortgage broker when he started, and he just was like, oh, okay, this is how it works. I'm going to buy a property every 2 years, and that's what he did, and he is wealthy.
Every 2 years.
Yeah.
So you had your first 2 single family, and that was your Airbnbs. Were those the only 2 you sold to get that net of $1 million, or?
Yes, so I sold those 2 properties, but then I sold my business as well.
Okay.
So my business, I sold for $500,000.
Wow.
Home-based business.
Okay.
And
What was that business?
it was promotional products, marketing products, selling to businesses.
Okay.
And man, that story, I don't know.
Talk me through that business structure. Promotional products. Talk me through that structure.
So the way the business works is you are a broker. So if anyone wants to buy anything with, let's say, unapologetically, Molly, you do water bottles or shirts or hats. You could buy it through a screen printer if you're doing apparel, but if you're buying hard goods, you typically have to buy them through a distributor. Now, if you go online, you'll find a bunch of distributors. They aren't the manufacturers. Unless you go to China directly, that's a whole other thing. But they need brokers to sell through, distributors. And so I was a distributor.
Okay.
So what we have is an industry called the advertising specialties industry. It's huge. Back when I was doing it before, it was like $23 billion industry, bigger than the movie business at the time. And I imagine it still is. It's a big industry.
Is that like affiliated, or are you guys just the middlemen? I guess
Middlemen.
okay.
Yeah, but it is structured. There's a couple of associations that everyone goes to their trade shows and everyone's part of the association. And so as a distributor, you get access to thousands and thousands of different manufacturers. Those manufacturers do not sell direct because if they could, then they wouldn't need distributors and it would just kind of poo-poo the whole business structure.
Yeah.
As a distributor, you don't need to have a warehouse. You don't need to have an office these days anymore. You don't even have to be in person. I used to meet people for lunch and stuff. I went completely online and I didn't do that anymore. In fact, I never met a single client in person. I never even talked to them on the phone. It was all email.
Okay.
So-
And they were looking to sell their products, and you were the distributor, the middleman between the manufacturer and them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you sold that for $500,000.
I did. And it was just me in my home. Now, I had, the reason why I was able to sell it is I figured out how to make it scalable. Now, we talked about perfectionism a little bit in the beginning. I want to hit on that again because this was a big aha moment for me. I'm speaking to women specifically because us women have a tendency to think everything has to be perfect. We value that. I know I did. Oh my gosh, I do everything perfectly. I dot all my I's and cross all my T's, and that's when my clients like working with me. But guess what? That is not scalable. You cannot outsource you can't delegate and outsource if you have to like control everything and make sure everything's perfect. It's just not scalable. So I was watching an episode of Shark Tank, and oh gosh, what's her name? Barbara Corcoran. She said something that really changed my life. She would not invest in a particular woman in her company. She said, because you want to control everything. You're too worried about everything being perfect. You're valuing that too much.
Yeah.
And she said, that is not scalable. And therefore, I'm not going to invest in you. And she had a great product. And I was like, I never thought about that. And so it literally, like, I started to think about my own business and thought, oh, okay, I need to let this go.
Yeah.
So she said something that hit me hard. 80% is good enough.
80%.
80%.
So what was your first steps? What did you hire after hearing that? And
Yeah.
you start, okay.
Yeah, because then I could stop trying to micromanage everything they did and make sure that it was exactly the way I wanted it. Perfect, right?
Yeah.
I started to go, you know what, this isn't perfect, whatever. But hey, if they're 80%, I'm cool with that. And the clients will be too. And you know what they were. And so I delegated customer service, delegated marketing, overseas.
Overseas, okay.
Which was another thing. You and I both like Fiverr.
We do love Fiverr. Great.
I think as a business person,
Yeah.
it's a huge tool.
Definitely free. I mean, you got other like Upwork out there as well. So yeah, definitely the help matters. Delegating. Delegating, because I cannot, deal with this social media web. It's a necessary evil to have all these social media pages. I was just talking about that with a friend the other day. Like, you got your LinkedIn, you got your all of that to manage.
It's so much, right?
Yeah.
Now, finding someone to handle your social who represents you, that's hard when it's you as a person.
Yeah.
But if it's a business,
You're their product or service. You either want to, you're marketing a product or service versus you as a person and your personality.
yeah.
I think about what's going on with Blake Lively right now. And I'm like, oh my goodness, they turned it around so quickly. And I'm like, I feel so bad.
I saw a couple of things that I didn't pay attention.
So basically, she had an amazing movie out called It Ends With Us. And it was based on domestic violence. And then basically some of the interviews that she did, I would say the interviews focused on her not being so nice to the interviewer, which she probably was, but who knows what was going on. I know a lot of people do play on set, but in any case, it turned around so quickly that now the media is shaming her for not taking the domestic violence movie as seriously as she should. So now she has her whole reputation on the line. But I say all that to say, like, how as public figures, it's not as easy to delegate ourselves as a business as it is to have the business be a business. Because we already know what the business is worth of. But as a public figure, you are so multidimensional, right? Yeah. And we want to be able to relate to everyone. But we also still have our core where it's like, this is where we came from, this is where we are. Right.
Yeah. I feel bad for Blake in a way because, we always see the edited versions and what people want to focus in on. And, she's the one that seems like a wonderful person. And I'm sure she didn't mean any of that. And
I mean, she's married to a comedian. I think, maybe she was having a funny day. But that still doesn't excuse her behavior for sure.
That you're right, though. As a public person, you're putting yourself out there. And I am too. And I don't always, get not every comment is an amazing comment. You just have to you just have to kind of go, it goes with the territory. It's tough. We watched Kardashians deal with that too, right? I don't know if you ever watched the Kardashian show. But.
I mean, yeah, they had seasons and seasons, but they're known for having a certain type of, morality, I feel like, where Blake was always pictured as the, the cool girl from Gossip Girl, Okay, back on subject. Tell me about some of the thoughts that was coming to your brain before you sold your company. I'm sure there must have been some doubt there.
Oh my gosh, that was such a wild ride. The universe is amazing. Really, really. I had been getting a little bored. Like I said, I delegated everything out. Now, I didn't hire these people on Fiverr or Upwork. I know we were talking about that. I actually hired them directly. So I had a couple of full-time employees overseas, in the Philippines specifically, and they were doing such a great job. I was working 2 hours a day in that business, and I had my Airbnbs, but, I basically had a lot of time on my hands. And I was like, okay, this is all well and good. I've got the revenue stream coming in, but I was like, I still want to do more in my career. I don't want this to be it. I don't want to just sit back and get lazy. I was feeling kind of lazy, So I was like, okay, what next? And I had this opportunity to speak. Public speaking was one of the biggest fears that I ever had. 2 fears. One is a fear of heights, which I still have. And the other one was public speaking. So I had the opportunity to speak at a marketing conference regarding my business. And I said, you know what? Let me just take this. I was ready for a challenge, right? Something new. And so I just started putting a talk together. I got really fired up about it. I thought, God, I'll probably be really nervous on stage. And when I got on stage, I wasn't. I had people nodding their heads and excited about what I was talking about. I was like, this is really cool. I like this. I was like, okay, I want to do more of this. The universe works in amazing ways. I got a postcard in the mail that said, learn how to sell your business.
Okay. But you weren't thinking about selling it then?
No.
Okay.
I was not.
Learn how to sell your business.
Now, in this whole scaling mindset, talking about mindset, I intentionally set my business up to be sellable. I wanted to make it scalable and sellable and removing myself from it. So I was not associated with any of the branding. You didn't even see my name on anything. I didn't even have a signature that said Jenna Banks CEO. I was just Jenna Banks. Nobody knew what role I played unless you worked for me. So I had made it sellable and the numbers were really good. The business had been growing substantially year over year. And I thought, I wonder how much I could get for it. So I go to this seminar free. I was like, yeah, why not? They taught me something I didn't know. And anyone watching or listening might want to just listen to this. So I always thought that when you sell your business, it was based on like a percentage of profits, and it matters what industry you're in, right? So technology has a certain multiple net profits or EBITDA. You know, manufacturing would have a different multiple, and that's how I always thought you sold a business from watching Shark Tank and other things like that. Come to find out, these guys who were brokers who were putting on the seminar said that's not how they sell. They sell based on finding a synergistic company to acquire a business, not a competitor, but a synergistic company who could find value instantly by your customer base aligning with their existing products and services, and vice versa. Their customer base aligning with your products and services. So it is an instant transfer, right? So these customers can now buy these products, so you not only gain that business, but you instantly get to up that both businesses. Super smart, right?
Yeah.
So then they were like, yeah, you now can sell based on, if you sell this way, they said they were trying to get business, obviously, which is why it was a free seminar, but that's okay because I'm a fast learner. And so I was so intrigued by this. And so I decided, okay, I learned their fees. It was way too expensive. So I am a business-minded person. I like to keep costs low. Found a broker who worked on commission only.
Okay.
No upfront fees. And I pitched her the idea. And she says, well, let me value your company. And they use the standard SBA banking evaluation. Small business, that's what they would do, broker. So she did it, came back with $320,000 as the business banking standard for figuring out what your business is worth. But like I said, I had learned a different way of selling the company. So I explained it to her and I said, hey, would you be willing to do it this way and let me set the price that I want? She said, well, how much? And I said, $500,000. I won't let it go for less than that. But if there's a bidding war, fantastic, but I won't let it go for less than that. And here's who I think we should go after, and we can target two companies together. Will you take it based on that? And she said yes, which was a big deal because she's working on nothing until she sells the business, right? And in 30 days, she had an offer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And he did try to negotiate, and she said, nope, she's firm. We still tried, and I was like, nope.
So she took on the business, and then I'm guessing she marketed it as such as, okay, and there was a business that kind of had the same products that was in alignment with what you had.
So in this case, the business who bought it ended up being a competitor, funny enough. However, it wasn't what you would think. They had an old school way of doing business, and mine was 2.0.
Okay.
Mine was modern age, low overhead. Theirs was offices, sales reps. Business was founded in the 80s. It was just an older business that had an old way of running things.
So what did they really acquire? Your intellectual property? I assume the S&P is the processes, the business processes and procedures.
Love how your mind works. Yes. Yeah. They bought the way the business worked. And then eventually what they did was they rolled up their company into my company, rebranded totally as my company, got rid of their sales reps, took on my model, and lowered their overhead.
Okay.
And so it was a win-win for them, right?
Yeah.
Because all this existing business, now they had more margin on that business.
Okay. Did their original company completely go out?
Yeah. Their brand, well, they folded up under the new motto, under my brand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the clients just migrated to the new brand. They just rebranded as my brand.
Okay.
Which is a huge testament to
that
approach.
Wow. Do you think businesses can still be sold like that these days?
100%.
I mean, I think we saw that when like Amazon bought Whole Foods, kind of, right?
Yeah. I will say I see businesses close all the time. And I'm like, why are you closing your business? I was just talking to someone. I was on set I was doing an MC work, an MC gig here locally. And they had a huge AV crew. 12, 15 people, and they were closing their business. He was retiring. And I was like, why aren't you selling? You got a client base, you've got employees, you've got equipment, you've got a business in a box. Why would you shut it down? But a lot of people close their businesses and don't think about selling it. So
You think they don't want to deal with the transition of it all because they feel like it's theirs and it kind of ends with them?
I think they don't understand the value of what they've got. I don't think they ever really thought of it being a sellable asset. I may write a book on this one day.
Yeah. I think as people, we don't even sometimes see the value that we hold just within ourselves.
Okay.
Because we have so much knowledge and we come across people that don't know what to do with the knowledge. And then they're just like, oh, that's not going to work.
Yeah, they second guess themselves.
Yeah. And
I say if you have a business, you want to see if it's sellable, talk to a business broker.
well, they think about the numbers too. Did your broker say, hey, I need your financials? What was your financials saying before
It was the 320 was the price tag, basically. So like based on the rate of growth and the profit, that was the current.
What was your profit percentage at that time?
I'm going to say
What were you netting in sales? How about that?
it was almost $1 million a year.
Okay, so it sounds like they almost like keystoned it, almost divided it by what a keystone would be and gave it a little bit more leverage.
Well, at 320, I think my gross profits were in the 30-something% and net was like...
But 30% is really good. I don't think people are getting that. Maybe between 10 and 20%. I mean, I think 10% is good.
Thing with the way I structured the business with good margins. There was like super low overhead, including my employee costs, right? Because I went overseas.
So did you take time to like train them in the business?
Another little secret is if you have a business where there might already be other businesses with a footprint in places like the Philippines or India, there's a whole talent pool there already.
Yeah.
You don't have to train them. I actually did my homework and found that there was a large company, very large, in my industry, and they had hundreds of employees, if not thousands, but they had been established for decades. And so that meant decades of employees turning over. That meant the market had a bunch of employees, old employees there. So I hired a recruiter to go find those people for me.
What is the numbers for a recruiter? So basically they find in, they get a percentage of if you hire them?
Sometimes I think I paid a $500, in the Philippines.
Yeah.
At the time, it was like a $500 fee, reload cost.
So crazy because people think, oh, it won't work because it was like that minimum, right?
Mindset.
Because people think, oh, I remember at one point my mindset was, oh, what is $200 going to do? And then like I invested $200 and something, and then I end up doing like 80%. And I'm like, oh, it was just in marketing. I think it was in marketing on something. But I think everyone's stuck in this mindset that we have to have all this money and really...
You don't... Everything is mindset. I am a MacGyver mindset kind of person. I don't know if you know that show, MacGyver. Do you know it?
I think I've heard the name of it. But tell me about some of the thoughts that come in your head. Like I can tell you mine and you can tell me yours.
For MacGyver?
No, just the thoughts that go through your mind whenever you're trying to what were the thoughts in the past before you went through the whole single mother, and then, selling your business and then now what you're doing. Like, do you ever have doubts as some people attribute them to like tiny voices in their head saying like, no, you can't do that. But I think it's like much deeper than that.
Imposter syndrome?
It's more like a doubt that you can make it happen. So whether that manifests as, I don't think I can do this, I'm tired today, blah, blah, blah. Like, tell me some of the thoughts that comes in your brain.
I mean, I always think you can do anything you set your mind to. I know that. I know because I've proven it over and over again. You can do anything you set your mind to. Where you put your attention is where your energy flows. So I set my mind to buying a house. Didn't have a lot of money at the time, but I set my mind to it, found a way, made it happen, and did it again. And if you just say, hey, I want to have a real estate empire, and you have nothing, you can make it happen. There is always a way. It's just a matter of what you set your mind to. And the inverse of that is true as well, right? If you don't think it's possible, if you have limiting beliefs that hold you back, those will hold you back. If you think you're not educated enough, if you think you don't have enough money, if you think people are smarter than you, or you're not smart enough, all those things will be true. You decide what is true for you. It's all mindset.
Tell me about, so you did your Airbnbs, you sold those, you did your company. Did those sell within the same time frame?
No, I sold my company first, then one of my houses right before COVID hit I thought I was making a good move, and I do think I made a good move because what would have happened is, I would have had a business that would have been stagnant during COVID. I literally sold it a few months before COVID hit.
What kind of service was it? Or product service?
That one, yeah, that's the company I sold.
Okay.
So I sold the promotional products business right before COVID hit. Most of the business was based on meetings, trade shows, things that required travel.
Physical presence. Okay.
That's right. Or employee gifts. Employees were now staying home. And so it was a problem. It would have been a huge problem for me, but because that company bought my company, they had a large enough business that they could absorb the impact. It would have really impacted me hard. So again, the universe works in amazing ways. The perfect timing. And they recovered and did great. And the house, same thing. I sold it right before COVID, and it would have been dead. Right? No one was traveling for like 6 months. And I had 2 homes that I was Airbnb out. So I had the other one still, and then I sold that one when rates started getting higher and higher. And Airbnb started to slow down for some reason. I don't know why, but I was like, I feel I'm being pulled in a different direction. Really, that started with the speaking. And I was called, and I just felt like that's my old identity. Time to sell it. I had made huge profits on both houses. That's where the profits came in.
And that was that a monthly cash flow, or are you talking about just when you sold it?
I sold it.
Okay.
Another reason to buy real estate. More money. You can make more money in real estate. How are we on time? We got my IMDb page set up and all the things they require.
IMDb. Because you want to pitch it to Tubi.
Yeah. So if you put it on Film Hub, they do the pitching for you.
Oh, I see.
They pitch it for you.
How do you make yourself competitive? I'm pretty sure everyone's filming up there. I mean,
you can't do anything. You just stick it on there and let them.
Let the universe kind of.
But it doesn't cost you anything. It's there, and then if they sell it, great. They take like 10 or 20%, I think, of the deal.
Okay.
That's not a lot. It's like, I think it's 10% of the deal. So they're incentivized to get a higher rate for you because they get a commission off of it. So it's like an affiliate for you. It's pretty awesome.
Okay, cool. Okay, Jenna, tell me a little bit about the transition. Okay, so you sold your real estate, you sold your company, now you're in public speaking.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me when that started and kind of where it has led you, because you said you were afraid to speak.
Yes.
So did you do TED Talks? Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, I'm putting that out there. I would like to get a TED Talk.
Yeah.
So yes, please, anyone listening to this, consider me for a TED Talk. But no, once I had that experience on stage and I enjoyed it, I'm like, I need some training because I do not know what I'm doing. So I told God, if I get my price tag for this business, I'm going to take this as a sign that I'm on the right path and that it's time to pursue speaking, And I'd also been thinking of writing my book. COVID hits a few months later. Bam, we have all this time on our hands, right? We're at home. You can't go anywhere. You're not distracted. I'd sold my company, so I didn't have a job or anything running at the time. Not even Airbnb's running because they were shut down. So I took that as an opportunity to write my book. And then I had found a speaking, organization, I want to call it, called Heroic Public Speaking. And I wanted to join. I had signed up to join, and then COVID hit. So we ended up doing online training. But once COVID lifted and we were able to travel again, they opened their doors and we could do it in person. So I trained with them for 7 months. And I talk about this in the book as well. Part of loving yourself more is investing in yourself, believing in yourself, investing in your passions. And so I decided, you know what? I got this gift of a bunch of money. Let me invest some of that back into myself because you know what? Time freaking flies. We only have so much time on this earth. Like, why not live it to your fullest potential? That is what I always say. It was a big price tag and a lot of time to spend, but I did the 7-month program and felt very confident after that. Like, I know how to write a great speech. I know how to deliver a great performance. I understand the art of speaking, and there's a community behind me that I know will back me up and I can rehearse with and I can run material by and all of that. And so that is exactly what I needed. Got into speaking, and it's been a wild ride ever since. I do a lot of other things event-oriented as well now, facilitating, moderating. You want to moderate a panel, I'm moderating panels.
You can't give me some tips because I have no idea.
It's not like there's a school for that. that either, right? You just kind of got to figure it out. No one trained me on that. Figured it out. But being a good listener and asking good questions is really...
That's right. You become a good interviewer.
Yeah. It's funny to take the opposite on being a guest on your show.
Oh, yeah.
I'm used to moderating the conversation on my show or moderating panel events. So.
Do you ever watch? I like to see when Joyce Meyer interviews, she always takes over the conversation. it's like Joyce, you're being interviewed. She's like my favorite. She's so down to earth.
Joyce Meyer?
Yes, Joyce Meyer.
I have to check her out.
You don't know Joyce Meyer?
No, I don't. Where do you
kind
watch
of
her?
Okay, so she's familiar with Joel Osteen, right? She usually comes on after him.
Okay.
But look her up. She's amazing.
I am.
She's written a lot of books about the mind is a battlefield. I think that was like one of my favorite books by her. But
Sounds fascinating.
definitely look her up. Joyce Meyer. Okay, so do you still own real estate?
I do, just my own home now.
Okay.
But because I did so well in my real estate ventures and with my business, I was able to level up that real estate piece. So I live in a really cool old building. It's one of the 8th oldest buildings in Atlanta. It survived the war. They turn them into lofts. And so it's just this sick loft building that's super badass, and I love it there. But I would have never been able to afford that had I not.
It's a loft. It's not a house.
It's a loft. Yeah.
Okay. And it's a whole building?
No, it's just a unit.
A unit. Okay.
It's got like 20-foot ceilings, and it's so cool. I love it there. It just inspires me.
Yeah.
A view of the city. You get to see the city skyline.
You said you have a son?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Does he still come and visit?
Yeah, he's 30.
Okay.
I could technically be a grandma right now, but I'm not.
Are you pushing him to?
Like, heck no.
You said no? No. You have your loft. Are you planning reinvesting back in real estate? Or like, what is, other than the speaking, where would you, if you had $1 million today, where would you put it? I mean, you probably do have $1 million, but where would you put it in this economy?
Closer to retirement, and my fiance and I have been together for a few years. And he is closer to retirement. So it's weird to be talking about that already. I'm not quite ready for that yet. But that's kind of where our minds are at. It's like, okay, he's ready to wind down. We're talking about going to another country, maybe France or Portugal, settling in there, either part-time for a while and then full-time after that. And so that's kind of the goal. It's kind of more like, okay, the future. And so either you buy a home there, there's certain ways to get into a country. One of them is buying a home, but you're going to pay cash for it. So and there's many other ways to get in. But so it's thinking about those things. And I don't know, there's like $1 million. Let's see, what would I do totally with $1 million? Wait, can I ask you a question? So have you ever heard of the double slit experiment?
What is this?
I love that you're talking about manifesting. Like, you believe if you think about it long enough, you'll manifest it. And so this ties into that. So I read about this, I want to say like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So basically, this is this experiment. Anyone can look it up. Double slit experiment. What they did was they shot photons or light particles through these two slits. And they thought for sure they would figure out if the light is a particle or a wave. They wanted to figure out, is it a particle or a wave? So they shot these photons through these double slits. And what happened was so interesting. They didn't realize this would happen. When they weren't observing the experiment, it was a wave. It acted like a wave. The pattern it would leave on the wall was like a wave. But as soon as they observed it, it would act like a particle and then be a little particle dot from the wall. And they came to realize that matter, it's changed by the observer. And so think about that for a second.
Matter is changed by the observer.
So this universe, our observation of it, is what holds it in place. And it also makes things manifest. And we are co-creators, right? So yes, there is a God, but we are co-creating in this universe based on what we think about, how we perceive the world. We're creating that reality. And we're also making things manifest. We're actually influencing the greater quantum field and making things manifest in it.
So crazy. I have a conversation about like the fears that you have are being set by your beliefs. Even the mindset behind you have to work hard.
That's true too.
But if that's what you believe and that's what you want to do,
then that's going to be true for you.
Yeah.
If you believe it, then that will be true. But also if you believe that things come naturally to you.
Yeah.
The world, the universe is abundance and God always provides. I always have a roof over my head and food to eat and a shower and a bed to lay in. That's really all I need. And the universe has always given that to me no matter what. So I will always be taken care of. If you choose to believe that, that is true for you too.
You know what the crazy thing is? I've noticed that there's still like ebbs and and flows in life. I may think, oh, I really need to work hard for this. But then if I don't think about it, it comes out of nowhere. But my personal belief isn't that I have to work hard. It's just, it's not until there's a level of detachment that something comes in. It may not be what I was investing time in.
Yeah.
But it's as if whatever you put in, you get. It's kind of like you're investing into a relationship, right? And you may not get that reciprocation from that person, but the universe always provides it, whether it be from that person eventually or from another source. So I'm just like,
sometimes relationships are meant to teach you lessons. I learned a lot about myself through relationships. The universe will keep bringing you that same lesson over and over again in the form of same relationships until you figure it out. Then you get to move on from that situation.
yeah.
But
You ever find the same person manifest in a different face, but their speech and their dialect is the same? You're like, man, I've met this person before.
it's
Same
so
energy.
True. It's so true. Don't worry about the how and the when and the what. Just keep driving. So that's that, and I love the way he talks about that. And then the law of he calls it Dharma. Law of Dharma, which means being in your purpose.
Dharma, karma. Dharma, karma.
Dharma is being in your purpose.
Being in your purpose.
And
Karma is reaping what you sow.
Dharma is being in your purpose. Karma is reaping what you sow.
Okay.
Exactly. So Dharma is, a lot of people are talking about that ever since COVID, right? Everyone wants to find their purpose. And it was one of those. I really was. And when I had read that book so many times, and when I stumbled upon the topic from my book, it was very unexpected. But when I realized, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I was wondering, what's my Dharma? What's my purpose? And I found it. And when you're in your purpose, you light up. You are connected to your authentic self. Nothing, you don't get overly concerned with money and all the little things. When you are in your purpose, God will provide.
Yeah.
The universe provides. So being in your purpose is something to definitely strive for, because it creates so much more fulfillment in life.
Yeah. So tell me about a situation, Jen, that you found yourself, let's just call it let's just say God showed up. Like you were just like, I'm not sure if this is going to happen, but things turned around so quickly that you're like, you didn't even notice that you were so stressed out about it before. Things just kind of turned around and you kind of everything fell into place. Do you remember a certain situation?
Okay, I gotta think about that because it happens for me all the time.
That's so good though.
Well, I have to say, okay, I'll give you an example. I'm 21, come back to the States after living overseas. My son, his father was from Holland. So we moved over to the Netherlands. I was 19 at the time. My son was born there. And then we moved back a couple years later. And we know we're going to divorce, but figure out where are we going to live so we can divorce in the same area. Where do we want to live? So I started looking in Santa Monica, which was like a pipe dream. I had been going down there and rollerblading at the beach, and I was like, God, it'd be really nice to live in Santa Monica, but it's like an expensive place to live, as I'm sure you know. You can just pop in and go, I'm going to live here with no money. I had a steady job at the time, and we had been renting a place on the outskirts of LA. But I start driving around with my ex-husband at the time, and the very first place we land on is an apartment complex that has a for rent sign. Now, we knew apartments were rent controlled there at the time. And they said, oh, it's impossible. These places have wait lists very long because the rents were really cheap at these specific apartments. And roll up, see a sign, walk in. The gentleman who owned the complex, he was from somewhere in Europe, and he resonated with my ex, who foreign, didn't have any American credit. I left the country when I was 19. You think I had any good credit? He pulls so he has a unit coming up for rent. And he's like, oh, I've got a place. Well, he showed us the one he had, and it was just not going to be suitable for our little family. Our young son was a year and a half at the time. So he goes, you know what? I have another one coming up. So 2 weeks it'll be available. People are moving out now. Maybe they'll let you see it. And so he walks over, knocks on the door, and they're moving out. And he's like, can we show the apartment? They're like, sure. So we walked in, got to see it before anyone else got to see it. It was the very end unit. There was nobody above us or below us. So it was almost like its own little mini townhome, if you will. It had a little yard. No other apartment. He owned multiple buildings on the perimeter. None of them had a yard. This one had a little gated yard. It was supposed to be a manager's unit. And he offered it to us.
Oh, wow.
How is that even possible? Rent was like $725 for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment 4 blocks from the beach. And it should never have happened. And I didn't know what gift it was at the time until I got in there. And then my ex and I separated a few months later. He moved out and I got the place. And to live in LA, La La Land is crazy. Traffic is nuts.
La La Land, I like that.
Crazy. And to live by the beach in the most ideal setting in LA, working against traffic, so if I had to go into downtown or into the valley, you're going against traffic. And it was rent controlled. I lived there for 18 years. It was a gift. I did not know it until months after I moved in. Neighbors were asking, how did you get the place? We've been asking about it. Someone said, you knew the owner. No, we rolled in and it was the first place we looked. This is where I was supposed to be for 18 years, 17 years of my life, to be stable, because I was very unstable up to that point. I didn't have any stability, but that was the universe providing for me. And it was a miracle. It was really a miracle. And I was thankful for it for years.
So 18 years and it was rent-aided.
It was what?
It was, you said rent control.
Yes. So basically what happened is New York had rent control department at the time as well, but that was lifted in Santa Monica a long time ago. But they still had a rent control board. So anyone who lived in a rent control department meant your rent could only be lifted each year by the maximum of what they say. Okay. Which was only like a percent or 2. So each year would go up a percent or 2, which is like nothing. So by the time I moved out, it was like $1,000 rent. But that 18 years only went from $750 to like $1,000. Who, like, it's just a gift.
Yeah, for sure.
It also at some point became a bit of a ball and chain because, if you're, again, a slave to money, whether you're saving money or living off of any freebie or handout or government, whatever, like you're going to, at some point, it becomes like a crux, right? And so I didn't need that anymore. I was just kind of sucking on that teat a little too long. And it was time to move on because the universe had much bigger plans for me.
By that time, 18 years, had you already started your businesses, or this was way before?
I just started my company.
Okay.
So I was doing well, right? I'm making well over 6 figures at the company I had been at for a while, and I left that job. And then I started that company, and I did it in that apartment. And a few months later, I moved to San Francisco. So it was like my son started college. I was able to move on. I wanted to give my son a stable place, which is why I stayed there. I didn't, I'd been used to moving around all my life. So it was just a stable place to be. But once I was ready to move, it was time to go. And then so much more opened up for me. So, yeah.
I wonder if it's still there.
And they fixed it up. And now they're charging like $2,300, $2,500 for it. Yeah,
it's so fun to see like where you came from and then how far you've come. I think so nostalgic.
I write about it in my book because I wanted to share the journey of, the journey of self-love, because it is a journey. There is no one and done when it comes to self-love. You, especially if you came from a place of not having any self-worth like I did, being raised to self-sacrifice, to wrap up your value in how much you please others, to undo all of that conditioning, to get to a place where you value yourself highly, like you won't allow anyone to treat you with disrespect, that you respect yourself so much that you won't. Actually, what happens is when you get to the point where you have a ton of self-respect and self-love and self-value, no one treats you with disrespect. It
just is. You just are.
You radiate this presence, and no one's gonna, your radiance will naturally just garner respect. But when you don't love yourself, and you don't have self-respect and self-love and self-trust and self-forgiveness and self-compassion, all of these are synonyms for self-love. When you don't have that, then you're in an insecure, fearful place, and people will treat you according to what's happening within you.
People will treat you in accordance with what's happening within you. Did you put some of the things that you've done in your book?
I did. My businesses, my houses.
Okay. Any practices that helped you on that self-love journey? Is it also in the book?
And I talk about all of it. Boundary setting was a big deal for me. Relationships, the toxic relationships I was in. Healing my own patterns that was attracting the toxic relationships, because again, it all starts with you. And I had a lot of trauma from my past that informed how I viewed others and who I attracted into my life. And I kept attracting the same kind of people over and over again until I learned the lessons I needed to learn to heal myself. And once I healed all that, I was able to attract someone I would have never ever attracted before. So that was my sign. I have healed my patterns. Yeah. So I'm in a very loving, healthy relationship. We don't fight. There's no drama. And it's just beautiful friendship and love and true partnership, which is what I never thought I'd find. And I was so happy on my own and whole on my own. I got to that place where I just was like not looking externally for the love. It was like, man, I just love myself. I love me so much. I can hang out with me. I'm my own best friends, and that's enough for me. And then ended up attracting someone I never thought was possible, but I'd always hoped.
I like that. I love that. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you.
Same, Molly.
Yeah, I want to sit here and say we're going to have her on again because I feel like we still have some questions to ask about your journey. And tell me, when's your next event? You speak at events. When's your next one? Where is it at?
I mean, the next one's kind of probably not one you want to hear about. It's a CIO event. I host these events where I MC and facilitate and moderate these CIO, CFO events. So those are my next ones. But the next one where I'm on stage, actually.
What do you mean CFO, CIO?
So I'm doing a lot of moderating and facilitating these days where I basically conduct about a 6-hour day programming for CIOs where they'll network together and one another. But I do it also with CISOs, CFOs as well. So that's been really a blessing and just learning how to get really good at facilitating and moderating for this company that I'm contracted with. But then I'll be on stage in October in Georgia, in Atlanta, for Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
And it's their women's program. They have their annual event. And so I get to give my talk on unleashing the power of self-love, which goes really nicely with my book. So I'll be there for a book signing as well. And
I love that, unleashing. Unleash self-love.
And I like unleashing the power of self-love. I like to say your love is your power. You can put your love and your attention on everything else, but you're giving all your love and your power away. Put your love and your attention inside, you're retaining that power, and then you have more power and more love to give to others. So the more we love ourselves, the more we have to give.
Okay, so I have to ask you, what are you unapologetic for?
Oh, I'm just unapologetic for making the choices that I've made. I've made some choices that might be controversial to some, and especially when it comes to parenthood. I write about that in the book as well. I'm unapologetic for choosing myself, even when being a single mom. Making yourself and your needs a priority, that message is so important. Even when you're a parent or a caregiver, any kind of caregiver, it is so important to prioritize yourself and your needs and your well-being. Prioritize means first. Because when you take care of you, you can show up so much better for everyone else. I think that we as women have that so backwards. We are conditioned to self-sacrifice, and that we think is what caregiving is and parenting. But it's not. You got to make sure you're still investing back in you. Show your children what it looks like to love yourself because they learn from observing you. They're going to go into adulthood thinking self-sacrificing is what you do when you're a parent if that's what they observe. But if you show that, no, mama still takes care of herself. She invests in herself. She does her hobbies. She still has fun and takes care of herself and cares for herself. And that makes you a better caregiver.
That's amazing. I love that. Everybody, please help me thank Jen for coming by. Again, where can they find your book?
Oh, it's everywhere books are sold. Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. TikTok shop now.
TikTok shop. TikTok is the where to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you guys for joining us today. Again, as always, live life intentionally, authentically, but most importantly, unapologetically. Thank you.